Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next mock interview on this channel, and today I have got a candidate named Shiva. Shiva is having a 2 years experience and wanted to have a mock interview with me. For the viewers who are looking the mock interviews for the first time, in the mock interviews, I get the candidate resume. I ask the questions to the candidate based on the resume, and at the end of this video, I would be providing the feedback to the candidate on the areas which can be improved upon and answer to the questions whichever the candidate has answered incorrectly. Please note that this interview is not for any job opening or any of the company. This is just a mock interview only for the educational purposes. In case you also want to have such mock interview with me, feel free to drop me a note on the email ID which is mentioned in the description and I shall reach back to you. Any of your details such as your name and the company information or the project information are not shared to anyone. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get the latest update. Having said that, let's get started. So Siva, I have received your resume for the mock interview. The pattern of the mock interview would be simple. I will ask you question based on your resume. You need to
Okay.
answer me the question. At the
Okay.
end of the session, I am going to tell you that what are the questions which you have answered me incorrect and which are the
Okay.
areas which you need to improve upon. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
So why don't you start by introducing yourself, Shiva?
Okay. Yeah. Myself Shivappa. Basically, I'm working for one of the automation organization since from 2 years. So
Okay.
I have developed projects for more than two customers. I mean more
Mhm,
than two customers in some of the internal projects.
mhm.
And so a few of the things like where I have developed from the scratch, and for most of the parts I have worked as a for the maintenance thing. So this is the brief about my work culture, that what I have gone through so far.
Okay. So any kind of certification have you done on UiPath?
Yeah, I'm preparing for that.
Okay, fine. And when you say that you have worked on development and maintenance, so is it the support which you are doing?
Yeah, earlier I have done the support, like if
Okay.
there is enhancements
Hmm,
or if we
hmm,
need to give some support kind of things, like
hmm, hmm.
with respect to some architecture and all those things. So that's what I have taken care. And for some two projects I have worked from the scratch, where I have not done much of the things, but
Hmm.
I got good exposure to the UI for the development.
Okay, so this project, whichever you are mentioning, is it a live one or is it where it is standing as of now? Is it a live
Yeah,
project?
right now, yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. So now to begin with, explain me any one of the project, okay, which you have done or which you are comfortable talking about. That what was the
Oh,
problem statement, what was the automation, what did you did, and how did you did?
okay. Basically, the thing is like this is for the insurance domain that we have done.
Mhm,
So basically, there we have two dedicated applications. One is a Sims, that is a web application. One
mhm,
is a Cast, so that is something like a database.
mhm,
So that is a Microsoft Access. So thing is that there is two sections for the web application. There is the top section. There it will display all the things about the particular insurance. I mean claim ID.
mhm,
So whatever the claim IDs that are there, so that will come in the bottom section. So basically, there are two sections. In the bottom section, there is something like a My Diaries. In the My Diaries, will have all the claims.
mhm,
So all the claims and claim IDs and what kind of claims. Basically, there are two claims. One is like auto claims. One is like worker compensation claims.
mhm.
So we have to select the claim accordingly. So whenever we select the claim, so the details about the claim is populated at the top section. So
Okay.
there we have further subtabs like subtabs. So the main motto of our automation is to we have to navigate for each of the subtabs. So as per the business tools, we have to extract the required data. I mean whatever the business team mentioned, so those first required data we have to extract. So once we extract the data, we have to add the data to the some database application. I
Mhm,
mean, something like Access application. There we have to feed the data. We have to hit on the submit. Once this is done, if there is any exceptions or something like that, so we have to handle those exceptions. as per the business rules that is mentioned. If suppose the data is not there or data is missing, it will populate some of the exceptions, and we have to handle those pop-ups as well. So this is the the brief about the small projects that we have done so far.
Okay. So if I understand it correctly, I'll just summarize. So you have a web application where you have some claim processing, you have the claim numbers, you click on the
Yes.
claim numbers, you extract the information, you put it into
Yes.
a database, and maybe
Yes.
Access or any database for that matter. And in
Yeah.
case you have any exceptions which are coming, you guys are handling those exceptions, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Now, is it a daily process? What is the frequency of this process?
Yeah, frequencies, it's the bot will be running frequently. I mean, the bot has to trigger very frequently. I mean, for a day, it's 2 to 3 times the bot has to trigger.
Mhm.
If bot is running for this 2 hours, it has to give some 15 minutes of break, and again after 15 minutes the bot has to trigger on its own, and it has to start processing again. So the frequency is like basically we'll get around 100 claims per day. The bot has to process all 100 claims for each of the
Mhm.
claim types. There are two claim types. For each of the claim types,
Mhm.
we'll get 100 claims. So
Mhm.
in total, bot has to process around 150 to 200 claims per day. So
Okay. So,
frequency is for every 3 hours it
hmm.
will come, 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, so it is every 2 to 3 hours you are processing the bot, right? And you are processing around 100 to 200 claims, right? Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what? So let's say if Shiva triggers the robot at 9 a.m. in the morning, how much time the robot
Okay.
will take to get completed end to end?
That
Approximate.
based on the number of claims.
Okay, so and
Approximately. Yeah.
okay, I got this. So if the claims are more, it would take more time. So I'll just repeat my question. How much time it takes to complete one transaction or one claim?
For one transaction, it's taking hardly 1 minute to complete in the
Mm-hmm,
using this automation.
mm-hmm. Okay, and you
One to
are
two. Yeah.
one or two. Let's say
One,
let's take 2 minutes for each claim. Okay,
1 to 2 minutes in between that. one to
fine.
two minutes Why? Because the reason is that
Mm-hmm,
there is a section that is called one more section called something called notepad. So
mm-hmm,
there has some attachments. What bot has to do, the required attachment as mentioned by the business team. If suppose the
mm-hmm,
number of see, number of rows are more, the bot has to loop more.
mm-hmm,
If there are 10 attachments, it will identify immediately. If there are 300 attachments, then obviously it will take some time. So maybe
mm-hmm,
it will consume some time there. So we can say it's between 1 to 2 minutes, the frequency of automation for one particular the
mm-hmm.
claims.
Understood. Understood. Okay. Now coming to the architecture part. So how this robot is designed? Is it designed in some kind of framework?
Yes, exactly, Nari framework.
And do you have covered it in the dispatcher performer, or there is a single robot? How is the structure?
Yeah, basically earlier what we are doing, we are extracting the data, adding to the Excel sheet, okay, as a dispatcher. Now what we are doing, data
Hmm.
means the claims. So now
Understood.
what we are doing, we are expecting the claims. We are adding those claims to the orchestrated queue itself. So from the queue, it's going to extract. I mean, there are two bots. One is
Okay.
dispatcher, one is performer.
Okay. So dispatcher is just getting the data whichever your insurance team has got you, going to, and then
Yeah,
just adding to the queue, and then maybe in the performer you are just reading all the items one by one and doing the
yeah,
stuffs, right? Okay.
yes. If
Now, one question here. So I guess it's an insurance domain, so we do not expect any of the data as duplicate, right? Can I have duplicate claims?
no, will not have any duplicate claims.
Okay. So when you are adding the data to the queue, right? Have you
Mhm.
created a unique reference or you have not created a unique reference?
Unique references. I didn't get this one.
There is one insurance claim which is already added to the queue. Okay. The claim
Mhm.
number is 1234.
Okay.
Fine. It's added to the queue. It is in new state. Fine.
Okay.
You run the dispatcher again.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, you got the same claim number, which was 1234.
Okay.
Right. But now, if you are using the dispatcher, you will trigger, it will again add the 1234 to the queue. right?
Exactly.
Now your queue are having 2, 1, 2, 3, 4s.
Okay.
Now what would happen? Because insurance, I understand that the claim number cannot be duplicate, or it might be duplicate, right? But
Mm.
as a developer, how would you make sure that the duplicate items are not added to the queue?
No, I'm not getting this one. I mean, we
So
have done
you
something.
you
Yeah,
understood
I
the
got your
question at
question.
least?
Yeah, I understand the question. Yeah, I got your
Okay.
question.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Maybe we
No
can
problem.
remove the duplicate.
But how would you remove the duplicate? First you will add and then you will remove?
Yeah, before adding only we'll check the data in the queue. I mean the loop.
Mm-hmm.
So if suppose
Mm-hmm.
the data is same, then we can
Mm-hmm.
skip
Okay.
that.
How? My question would be how? Which activities you will use, or how? What would be the logic you are going to use? Okay, that's okay. If you have not done it and you are not getting, that's absolutely fine. Okay, we can discuss it later on. Okay. How is your dispatcher and performer scheduled, right? Is there a gap between them? Is it a queue trigger or is it a time trigger for the performer?
For performer, it's a time trigger.
Okay, and how much is the gap between the dispatcher and the performer?
Yeah, once the dispatcher uploads data, so as I said, it's after 15 minutes the performer has to trigger.
Okay, so dispatcher will complete after 15 minutes, the performer will get trigger, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and it is taking 1 to 2 minutes to complete each of the transaction. Okay,
Exactly.
understood.
Yeah.
Now, in the dispatcher part, right, you are getting the claims and then you are adding those to the queue, right?
Okay.
Which activity in UiPath are you using to add the data to the queue?
So there is a activity called add queue item.
Mm-hmm.
That one we can use. So there we have to mention the what is the queue name that we are going to have.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one. And secondly, there is one more option called bulk add queue items.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are more number of items, something like a list or some collection. So by
Mm-hmm.
using the bulk add queue items, we can add it a singly. I mean, in a single shot, we can add all the queue items to the queue.
Okay, which one you using in your project? Which one
So,
are you using?
so as I remember, we have used add queue item.
Okay, so you have used add queue items to add the data to the queue. The queue is populated and it is going fine, right? In the performer, right, what you have to do is you have to get all the items one by one. Okay,
Mhm.
so what I actually write in the performer to get the data from the queue? How do I read the transaction item?
Basically, some transaction item dot that specific content from that queue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
specific content of what we want to do was specific content of that ID. I mean, if
Ha.
suppose a
Hmm.
queue
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
something populated, right? So it has something like ID, name, and all those things.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
I'll do some transaction item dot specific content of ID, name, whatever I require, I'll do that for each of the, because that's a kind of list, right? So we have to,
Correct.
I mean, that's a kind of collection.
Hmm.
So if I want to have the ID, name, and all those things, so subsequently what I'll do, so
Hmm.
some transaction item dot specific content of ID or name or something like that.
Okay, fine, perfect. So specific content is the correct answer. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have got the details from the queue and now you have to extract that information from the web application, right? Now,
Okay.
when I say
Okay.
the web application, it would
Mhm.
definitely require the URL to open, right?
Yeah.
Where would you get the URL for the web application?
So basically the URL will be stored in the Excel constant sheets. I mean
Mm-hmm.
the config file. So from there from there
Hmm.
from config sheet will fetch to the URLs that URL wherever will enter the URL in the browser.
Mm-hmm.
So they will populate from there from the config file.
Okay, okay. And you have opened the URL, you will insert the data. Now to extract the data, what are the steps I would need to take in UiPath to extract this data? And I understand this is a tabular data, right? In a form of a
Mhm.
table. How do you extract tabular data in UiPath?
No, it's not a tabular data. See, there
Okay.
are five, as I mentioned, five subtabs. For one tab,
Mm-hmm.
it's a tabular data. For
Okay.
other tabs, there are fields.
Okay. So which activities are you using to get those data out of the web application?
So basically get text is one of the option. We can get the text.
Okay.
Or else we can use some anchor base also. If suppose the position of that particular label and its value is changing, we can go for the anchor base.
Okay, so
So
which one
basically
are you
we are
using?
not with the anchor base, we used get text, because that is the label is fixed, it's not changing.
Okay, so but which one you are using?
Get text.
Get text you are using. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So get text, and you have uploaded the data to the queue. Okay, now you mentioned that you have handled the exception, right? So can you
Mhm.
just give me what are the different system exceptions which you have handled?
So the null reference exception, the first thing.
Okay.
Secondly, application exception.
And where exactly are you expecting the null reference exception?
See, whenever something is some field is empty, I mean the variable doesn't have any values, so bot is referring to extract the data, I mean get the data from that particular variable or argument. If there is no values stored in that, then we'll get null reference exception.
Okay, so that you have handled. Okay, and what about the business exceptions?
So business exception is something like, if as if some the rules are violating, then we'll define the new business rule exception.
Hmm.
No custom exception, if suppose some data is not matching or something like that.
Hmm.
So using business rule exception, we defined a new custom exception.
Hmm.
So we are throwing that, and that is cached in the exception, I mean business rule, I mean in the exception itself.
Okay, so in your process, which all business
Mhm.
exceptions have you handled? So what were the business exceptions which you have raised in the process?
So for some of the fields, if suppose what they have mentioned is, in the whenever we extract the particular value from the field, if the value doesn't have something specifier for
Hmm.
that, suppose if there is something like
Hmm.
some id that is coming out, like
Hmm.
it has a syntax like ab or some number, and bc some number. If suppose ab or bc is missing, so we are not able to identify what kind of frame it is. So in that case, if something is missing, only if some value is only there or some field is completely missing, then at that time I have handled the exception like, this field is missing, please make sure that it has some value, like that.
Hmm.
I mean
Hmm.
in the business rule exception,
Hmm.
this is what the custom value that I have defined, and use this one as a the exception statement.
Okay. Once your automation is completed, how would you know that the process has completed, or let's say it has got some exception? How would you get? So we need to go and check in the orchestrator?
Yeah, we'll see in the logs, right?
Okay,
The logs, what
so
logs are generated, you can see in the logs.
okay, and what do you do? So what happens in case the process is successfully completed?
So we'll get the in the logs itself, we'll see like the process ended, transaction completed and process ended successfully. So in the logs only, by that we can identify that process got successful.
Okay, so you are not getting any kind of notification, email, anything from the robot once it is completed?
No, basically email will trigger whenever there is an exception,
Mm-hmm.
for a particular business team, for particular line of business, the it will trigger an email.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
fine.
for developer,
Mm-hmm.
from the developer, I mean from the developer point of view, so what we have done something like, so if there is any exception, it may be any system exception or maybe business exception. So anyhow, if it's a business exception, what will happen, the bot will trigger the mail and will go for the next transaction. But when it is a system exception, it will not it will not go for the next transaction. The thing is that it will, as it is built in a framework, right? So it will retry for that particular application for launching and all those things. If still it has some error, error in launching the application, then it will trigger the mail to the dedicated team, then close the applications and close the process.
Okay, okay. So now, once let's say you have got a system exception in the process, right? And you are seeing in the logs in the
Mhm,
orchestrator, okay, so you might not have access. So there is some exceptions or issue which has happened in the live process, right? What would you do now?
mhm.
So what would be the next set of steps which you are going to take? you have found an exception which say, let's say, null reference exception, right?
Mhm.
So what would be your next steps?
So is this a developer point of view or
Yeah,
for the process point of view?
developer point of view. Let's say as a developer, you
So
have received a null reference
mm,
exception, right? So what would you do?
so the thing is that first we request the logs from them.
Okay.
We'll check the logs.
Uh-huh.
So at what point we got the exception, we'll check that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the business, I mean, in the process, what we'll do, we'll go for that particular, stage where it failed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll put some, breakpoints and all. We'll check because by what I understand from that is, so whenever we put a breakpoint, so in the local panel or some of the watch panel, we'll get all the
Mm-hmm.
variables, whether it has if suppose there is a null reference exception, if I want to check whether the value is coming or not exactly, so I'll
Okay.
keep the breakpoint till that point. So in the local
Mm-hmm.
section, I'll get the data. I mean, I'll get all the what the bot is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there it has all the input variables, output variables, arguments, all those things. So there I can check whether it is coming, data is coming or not. So based on that, I'll proceed whether how to make changes accordingly.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So I'm just going through your CV. You have mentioned one project which says RPA something maintenance project. Okay, and
Yeah,
you have written here that we are maintaining the workflow and we are doing the changes of the development using the JavaScript, right?
yeah.
So how in RPA you are going to do the changes with JavaScript?
Basically that is related for it's a tool in RPA, but not like UiPath.
Mm-hmm.
So some internal tool that we have built.
Okay.
So there mostly we deal with the JavaScript itself, like using the DOMs, using the XPath.
Hmm, hmm,
So
hmm.
whatever we have to play with XPath itself, based on the XPath we'll proceed. So something like that.
Okay, okay. So it is not in UiPath, but you have done
No,
some different project and there you are updating the JavaScript DOM, right? Okay. So what is
yeah,
the full form of DOM?
document object model.
Okay, fine. And where you get the entire HTML tree and then you do the changes and all, right?
Entire.
Okay. So I have got some questions for RE framework. Okay. How many
Okay.
states by default are there in RE framework?
So basically the four states,
Mm-hmm,
they need state, get
mm-hmm,
transaction data,
mm-hmm.
process transaction data and state.
Okay. In which state of RE
Mhm.
framework we usually generate the business exceptions?
Exceptions, right?
Business
So in the
exceptions.
process transaction, business exceptions in the process
Hmm.
transaction state.
Okay. Okay. And how are you publishing a project to the orchestrator? What steps do you take?
So basically in the design tab itself, we have an option like whenever we build a process,
Hmm.
there's something like we have a publish to orchestrator. We can click on that, so the process will publish to our orchestrator.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
this is the one
So,
way we can do.
and when you hit the publish, it will directly go to the production environment.
No, it will not directly go to the production environment.
Hmm.
So we have to push the code using the Git or something like that. I mean, yeah, using the Git, we can upload to the Git. So
Hmm.
from the Git, we can, we can, anyhow, whenever we create a process, the project.json and main.xaml file will be stored in the somewhere in the local repository. We have to take all that as a package. And this is
Mm-hmm.
the same package will be applied with the Git. So from the
Mm-hmm.
Git, what we'll do, we'll pull the code and upload to the orchestrator.
Okay. Now one question here. Tell me
Mhm,
the steps you are taking in your current role to
mhm,
deploy a project from your UiPath studio, which is in the development, to the production
mhm.
orchestrator, right? What are the steps you take?
Sorry, I have not worked on pushing the codes to the production environment.
Okay, so but at least are you aware of that? What are the steps the other team members are taking?
Yeah, this is what I know. I mean, they'll
Hmm.
they will take the code. They will take the code they will update to the
Hmm.
Git repository. From the Git
Hmm.
repository, so for their they have their UiPath environment, right? So
Okay.
in their UiPath environment, they'll pull the code. I mean, they'll pull that code for their designer panel, and from their design panel, they publish to their orchestrated server.
Okay. And when you say that they will push to the orchestrator server, so there would be two orchestrator, right? One is your development orchestrator and one would be your client or the production orchestrator, I would say, right? Now,
Mm-hmm,
there are certain assets which you would have created for your development,
mm-hmm,
right? In your
mm-hmm,
UI path, in
mm-hmm.
your development, you would have created two assets, three assets. When you deploy
Okay,
the project, those assets would not be available there,
okay.
right? Would it be
So
there
we
or
have
would
to
not be
recreate.
there? Yeah.
No, it will. We have to create again in their orchestrators.
Okay, so how would they know that which one I need to create? Or what name should I give? What value should I give? Who would tell them?
Sorry.
So so the answer is correct that they would need to go and create those assets in the orchestrator, right? But how
Mm-hmm.
would they know that how many assets they need to create? What would be the name of the assets? What would be the value inside the assets? How would they know?
So basically, in the config sheet, whenever
Huh.
we create an asset,
Uh-huh.
okay, whenever you create asset, so we'll have that name, that asset name that is in the config sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So moreover, this is all, from the thing is that in the run book or in the deployment guide, we have to
Mm-hmm.
mention. So what are the changes, what are they need to do? So what are the changes? I mean, in order to keep a bot for setup, what are the things that they have to configure initially? That is
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in that. And other than that also, if suppose we are referring for some assets, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay, so we are referring that asset in our config sheet.
Okay.
So based on that, and even whenever we are referring some asset in a config sheet, so all the things, or the moreover we have the description for that. So what is that asset that is mentioned? So based on that, they'll get, they will get to know. So what kind of asset they have to create, and what is the type of that asset, and where to place all those things.
Okay. Fine. So that is it from my side, Siva. I am done with all my questions. Okay. Uh, Before I hand over the mic to you, I would just like to provide you the feedback. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, your interview was good. You sorry. Some of the things which I really liked was the way you have explained the project. Okay, the project explanation was good. I was able to understand that what you are doing with the project, how that
Mhm.
is working and everything. One thing as a overall feedback, that whenever you are speaking, right, you are speaking very much fast.
Okay.
So you can be a little bit slow whenever you are explaining the things which are new, such
Okay.
as your project, right? Such as how do you handle the things, right?
Okay.
Because you are speaking very, very fast and I need to very, very much concentrate, right? So if there are, two to three people in the interview, then
Mm-hmm.
it might create problem to some of them, right? So
Okay.
try to take a pause and then start saying the other sentence. Okay, that is just a casual feedback. Okay.
Okay.
Apart
Thank
from
you.
that, you have answered me. The add queue item question was correct. The specific content which you have told, that how do you retrieve, that is also correct. Uh, the constants, config, business exception, system exception, email part, all of these
Mhm.
questions you have answered me correctly. Okay. Now, the one questions which you have not answered me, that how do you stop the process from adding duplicate item to the queue, right? So the answer is simple.
Yeah.
You are using that add queue item activity, right?
Okay.
In that add queue item activity, you have that one field which is called the unique reference,
Okay.
right? So if the unique reference is checked, so there you specify that, okay, if the items are unique, the next item,
Mhm.
whenever there are items in the queue and you have specified the unique reference, before adding the
Mhm.
data to the queue, if it is already available, it will throw an exception that yes, the key is already present, right? So the answer to that is just using the unique reference of the add queue item.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, we have to enable that property.
Yep. You have to specify the unique reference. So in your case, the unique reference is nothing but the insurance ID,
Insurance area.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So apart from that, the life cycle of the RPA is something which you need to work upon. Okay, you cannot say
Yeah.
that I have not worked on You might not have
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
on, that's absolutely fine, but at least go back and ask your
Okay.
colleagues that how they are
Yeah,
doing it, right? You
yeah,
might
yeah.
not
Sure.
be knowing the end to end, but at least you should know that what are the next steps, such as deployment, testing, run book, what
Okay.
are the next development step, how do you prepare the run book, how do you share the run book, right? How do you deploy, how do you
Okay.
create the asset? So basically you need to understand that how RPA as a complete process cycle is working on a company, right? End to end. Okay.
Okay.
And for
Okay.
this one, I have also one video which is available on my channel also. So if you'll just look for project life cycle, there it is having the basic life
Mhm.
cycle, that how does a project work, right? So if you look into it, you will also get an idea that how does a project move across different stages. But the idea is you should have a knowledge
Mhm.
of the project life cycle. Okay.
Sure.
Apart from
I'll
that,
check
your
that.
interview was good, right? It was really nice. For a 2 years experience guy, you have the good enough knowledge. Okay. Now, any questions for me?
Yeah. The thing is that I have learned all the most of the things from your videos, except basically when it comes to the exception handling and the framework. Earlier, I was facing much difficulties. That's the
Okay.
one thing
Mm-hmm.
I completely strongly learned from your tutorials and all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing. I'm still looking forward, for most of the good tutorials from your end.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you. I appreciate your feedback. Okay. So then we are good to close the call. I hope this interview was helpful and you know what are the things you need to work upon.
Yeah, I got, and thanks for the feedback. So it will help me to, understand the things where I'm missing and get
Hmm.
back to the next steps.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, then, Shiva.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay. So that is all for this video. I would like to wrap this video here. In case you also want to have such live mock interview with myself, please drop me a note on the email ID which is mentioned in the description. I hope you found this video insightful. If that is the case, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.